everyone, and welcome back to our Take on Cruise with Shannon and Roger, or
Roger and Shannon.
My name is Shannon McKee of Access Cruise, and with me I have
Roger Blum with Cruise and Port Advisors, and we're back with another special edition. A few months ago, we did an interview with Anne Kalosh, the editor of Seatrade Cruise News, because pretty much everybody knows Anne.
Everybody, and if you don't know Anne, you need to get to know Anne.
But what people didn't know is that Anne actually started out working on board cruise ships as a shipboard news editor.
You know what? And the best part is going from cruise ship editor, she is now going to be moderating the State of the Industry address on Tuesday for the big opening. Well, okay, the second opening, because we kind of have an opening too, but the big opening of Seatrade Cruise Global. Anne is going to be moderating that session.
Yeah, so it's the only event that I think is bigger than Mondays with us. The State of the Global Cruise Industry, as everyone knows, is the biggest event where the CEOs of major cruise lines all get together, and Anne is a moderator. I can't think of a better one. So since we were speaking to Anne before, and so many people found it fascinating,
yes,
we have a follow-up interview with Anne, and that's what we'd like to do, is reintroduce Anne Kalosh.
So check it out.
I'd like to welcome Anne Kalosh back. We met Anne a few weeks ago, or actually probably a couple months ago, when we were discussing how she got into journalism as a ship's newspaper reporter on Royal Viking lines. And so many people were interested because everybody knows who Anne Kalosh is from her bylines, from Seatrade Cruise News, from the other freelance and consumer articles she does. But we were talking about who Anne is or how she actually got started. And then afterwards, I was talking to Anne a little bit about other things with life on Royal Viking line. And being a newspaper editor was a lot more interesting than just going to the radio room and getting a telex with the news. You were telling me you've met some really interesting people.
That's right, Roger. I also got to interview a lot of the famous people who sailed with us.
Like who?
For example, my first cruise, Shirley Jones, who was the star of the classic movie Oklahoma and the mom on the Partridge Family.
Can you sing Oklahoma? No, I'm not. Okay,
I
go. No.
Oklahoma. One of my favorites was Carl Sagan, the famous astronomer. And with Carl Sagan and his family, I went out in Panama to search for Halley's Comet with telescopes, so that was exciting. And in Vanuatu also. We never really saw Halley's Comet, but being with Carl Sagan was a thrill.
Vanuatu would be a thrill for me too, but
It was Paul Bocuse, who some people consider the most famous French chef of all times.
yum.
Sailed with us. Robert Mondavi, who really started the whole wine industry, the contemporary wine industry in California.
What about your bridge instructor?
Oh my gosh, Omar Sharif, the great actor, was our bridge expert, and I'm talking about the card game bridge.
Not the navigating part of the ship.
Not the navigating bridge, yeah.
Oh, you must have met some really interesting people.
Absolutely.
So we were also talking, like, my background was not such long cruises like yours. You actually did world cruises, which has been kind of a dream of mine. You must have met some pretty fascinating people there.
Yes, I did, and a lot of people who did world cruises back then went for the whole way, so 3 months, not segments.
So you really got to know your guests.
I did. I hosted a dining room table, and I had the same passengers for 3 months. They were subjected to me for dinner every night for 3 months.
You know, that, and I'm sure 3 months of dinner with you would be fantastic, but for you as being a staff member, it must have been a little bit difficult to keep a conversation and to keep it entertaining for 3 months.
Roger, they were really interesting people who sailed with Royal Viking line back then. It was fascinating, and of course we all had a little champagne and wine to ease the flow of it.
Well, yes, and also I would imagine 3 months on a ship with the same guests, you become a family, and there's people in the family who you really like hanging out with, and there's people in your family who maybe 3 months, 7 days a week of them might be a little much. You get to know the good and the bad of people.
No, Roger, I'm going to say
You're so diplomatic.
I enjoyed the company of all my guests in the day.
You are so diplomatic. And for the crew, spending that much time together, whether you're doing a 3-day cruise or a 3-month cruise, the crew is still together. But 3 months, every day is a different adventure.
Absolutely. We would get to go on shore excursions as escorts sometimes. So riding camels at the Great Pyramids or going to the Taj Mahal was a real highlight for me.
And the other thing, and I like to keep these things a little bit short, but your background as a crew member and my background and my wife's background and Shannon's background, we all were part of the crew, which was always a wonderful experience. But I don't know how you feel. I think the life of crew members has really changed from the days that we were at sea. Do you find many changes for the crew?
I think the crew life today is much more regimented, and of course the ships are a lot bigger, and there are more accommodations and facilities for crew on board. When I worked at sea, we had a crew bar and we had a crew mess, and that was really it.
For me
and
too.
I shared a bathroom on a hall with a bunch of guys.
I shared a bathroom in a hall with a bunch of guys, but I guess
You're a guy.
that's the nicest thing you ever said to me. Thank you for that. And it is true. The crew accommodations on ships are much better than they were. Also the crew facilities, there's enrichment, there's learning opportunities, there's a lot more to do than either the bar or eat.
And don't forget communications, because people can call home today and be in touch with our families. In my day, we would have to save up our quarters to go ashore on the pier and dial from a payphone, if you know what that is.
And it's true, the big thing when the ship came into port, bags of mail would come on board for the crew, because that was the communication. It was bags of mail lining up for the payphone, because the payphones, once they had enough quarters in them, they'd be out of order because they couldn't take any more. Then they'd start to get the crew centers in, where you could go and make calls from the crew centers. But I think it's changed in many ways. In most ways, it's much better for the crew than it was. The contracts are a lot shorter.
My first contract at sea was 13 months, so that's working 7 days a week, 365 days a year, but that's what you expect going into it. So I enjoyed it. I didn't know any different, and I loved it.
Well, I think what's wonderful is we wanted to keep it short, but I think, Anne, your passion for ships, for the cruise industry, has been there since you first started, and even just how you're answering these few questions now, I can see your love and your passion for the industry is the same as it's always been.
I love it, Roger. Very exciting business, great covering it, wonderful people.
And the people, I think, is what's made the difference and what keeps this business going. The ships themselves are bigger, better, blah, 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 but it's still the people that keep this industry going.
The crew, yay crew.
So, Anne, thank you for joining us for a second time. You're our second time guest.
Oh, thanks, Roger. I'm honored.
Thank you, and Anne, thank you. It's so great to get together with you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.